Good afternoon, everybody. How you doing? This is Christmas Eve, and welcome to the Navigator Prophetic Newsletter. My name is Mike Killian out of Eastern North Carolina, and today I want to bring you the message that I feel very necessary for the time that we're living in, because so many people are talking about the legitimacy of Palestine, of the Zionist occupation of Israel. And as I watch the debates going back and forth, especially between Victor Davis Hanson and um, Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and everybody else on talk radio, I see them going back and forth, saying, Palestine doesn't belong to the Jews. They don't have a right to the land. And then you have those that say, yes, they do. They have a right to the land because it's a biblical promise from God. Okay. I've been listening to this um, uh, debate going on for a long time, and I've studied the Middle East situation for decades. Okay. And what I am seeing is that both parties, no matter who I listen to, they are missing certain very important points. And so I would like to go over some of those points today and just list them. I don't want to stay very long today because this is Christmas Eve. It's 5 o'clock now. I've been working on this for 4 hours. And so I will begin by saying one of the common arguments that you hear concerning the Zionists is that the Zionist occupation of Palestine is that they say that they have a biblical mandate and a biblical promise from God in the covenants of God, especially the covenants to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that land would be theirs in perpetuity. Now, that is my first point that I want to take issue with. Okay. And they say that those that bless Israel shall bless, those that bless the Jews shall be blessed, and those who curse Israel shall be cursed. Okay. I would like to say that is no longer valid, because the covenants that God ever gave to Israel at any time were always conditional. Okay. They were conditional upon um, uh, obedience. Okay. It was conditional upon obedience. And if you would go to Leviticus 26, the whole chapter, and Deuteronomy 28, the whole chapter, you're going to see the blessings and cursings chapter. And all of those blessings and cursings are based on a condition. And it's based on if they are obedient. Okay. Now I'm asking you, when in history was Israel ever obedient? Only for a small time under David and Solomon. And that's when they received that land from the Nile to the Euphrates. And they did it. Yes, they did it through military conquest, but the people that they conquered loved David and Solomon, and they entered into a love relationship. So that was the only time that they were ever obedient. And look what he did. God fulfilled the Abrahamic covenant back then. Okay. So there is no promise today, because we are going to go to the second issue here. And that is that Israel was cursed in the first century by Jesus when he cursed the fig tree. And he said that, of course, the fig tree is a type of apostate Israel. And whereas the olive tree is a type of obedient Israel. He said that he would bring those olive branches together in Ezekiel 37. Um, but the fig tree is always treated as an apostate because it bore no fruit. So what did Jesus do? He cursed it and said, this is very important that nobody's catching today. That he cursed the fig tree and said, fruit will never grow on you again. Okay? Fruit will never grow on you again, Israel. And what happened later on in the first century? It was destroyed and it was plowed like a field. I forget where it says it, but it says Zion shall be plowed like a field. Okay? So that's Jesus ended Israel, and they're never to grow up again, and he replaced it. Now I'm going to go through these other reasons here, and so he replaced that Israel with what? And we're going to go through that here in a second. Now, the third one is political Zionism and Judaism is not biblical due to the infiltration by tares and the synagogue of Satan. See, by the time Jesus came around, and all through their history, and even today, Israel has been infiltrated by tares. False brethren crept in unawares, as it says in Jude, and the synagogue of Satan, as it says in Revelation 2:9 and 3:9. So when you look at Israel today, when you look at Israel in Jesus's time, that was not the Israel of David. That was not the Israel that was favored. That was the Israel that was cursed. And so the whole history of Israel is where Israel goes off the rails and it gets off the rails and is disobedient, and they get slammed. Okay, first by the Assyrians and then by the Babylonians, and then in the first century, in answer to and fulfillment of the fig tree principle, it gets destroyed. Okay, and it's never going to bear fruit again. So what is it that they are building in the Middle East today? Okay, they want to build a temple made with Jewish hands, and they want Jesus to come and sit in that temple and supervise animal sacrifices. Now, does that sound like a godly move to you? Do you think that God would be behind that? No, he would not. Okay. Now, it was the Zionists who brought terrorism into Palestine, where from 1517 to 1917, there were no organized, large-scale wars under the Ottoman Empire. Okay, so before the Zionists got to the Middle East, it was relatively peaceful. Okay, and it was organized. People will tell you that there was no organized government in Palestine until the Jews got there, and that's not true. The Ottomans were organized. They had legal courts. Okay, they had the buying and selling of property. Okay, and they had a real estate office and a business development, and they had little villages. Although they did not have it was the Ottoman Empire, but it was not a city state. Okay, so it was relatively peaceful, and the Zionists brought the terrorism to the Middle East. Okay, so then after they came in as wounded, okay, they started trickling in from Europe as wounded. The Palestinians welcomed them, said, "Come on in, come on in." But then it started to come as a torrent. All right, and then they started to get crowded, and then they started using slick land purchases from people who had homesteaded on their properties for decades, and they used and then when the Palestinians began to push back, then they terrorized the Palestinians. Okay, so the very first terrorists in the Middle East were the Zionists. Okay, don't buy this crap that they're feeding you out there, because uh, the media is Zionist owned. Okay, and they're telling you that it's all the Palestinians' fault. It's all Hamas's fault. It's all Al Qaeda's fault. It's all ISIS's fault. Those did not exist at the beginning. They existed. They rose up in answer to Zionist terrorism. Okay, Zionist terrorism was the first terrorism in the Middle East. Okay, um, modern day Zionist Israel is not legitimate because Judaism is not of God. The old Torah was replaced by the new covenant law of love. You say, well, it's replacement theology. Okay. Where do you think Jesus came from? Where do you think Christianity came from? What did Christianity do? Because Christianity was brought in, and in 70 AD, Old Testament Israel was destroyed. Does that sound like Israel is to continue? It was destroyed under a prophecy of destruction by Jesus. Everybody's forgetting the words of Jesus. Okay? Um, so Israel, Judaism was replaced. And you know this from Pauline theology. Okay? The law never was meant to make anybody righteous. It was a schoolmaster until. Now I'm asking you to get in touch with your memory banks and what you've learned in church about the importance of law versus grace. Okay, and the law of love, which is the new covenant, but the old covenant was the old wineskin, and it never could handle the new wine. So what would happen if you put new wine in the old wineskin? It would burst. What happened to Israel in 70 AD? It burst. Yes, it burst. Wow, did it burst. The current Zionist leadership uses religious reasons as motivation for taking over Palestine. But Zionists are secular and satanic at the root. God will not endorse the modern state of Israel, a modern state of Zionist, Satanist Israel. Okay. Now, the next one is saying that Israel has a right to the land of Palestine is misleading and confusing. One has to ask, which Israel are you talking about? Because that's a multiple choice answer. Okay, it's a multiple choice answer. You have to say, is it the Old Testament Israel or is it the New Testament Israel? Is it Zionist Israel or is it spiritual Israel? Is it the Jewish people? You must be specific. Making it simple, the true Israel is the church. We are the new Jerusalem. We are the new temple. We are the temple. Okay, not a building in Jerusalem made with brick and mortar by hands of man. This temple was made by God. Okay. Okay. Ha- Also, have we forgotten the diaspora? How many times has Israel been dispersed throughout the planet? The first time it was dispersed was when they came out of Egypt. Not everybody went with Moses to the east. A major portion of the Jews went to the west along the north coast of Africa, all the way to Tripoli, and then they jumped over the Strait of Gibraltar into Spain, and they started to colonize Western Europe. Okay, yeah, and that's why Paul wanted to go to Spain. Okay, he had already made it to Britain when he wasn't in jail, of course, but when Jesus came, he dispersed them again. And he said, "Go into all the world and go first. Go, do not go first into the way of the Gentiles, um, but go after the lost sheep of the house of Israel." Well, they were dispersed in the world. They even went to the east, as far as India. Yes, they went as far as India. So the whole idea here is, why would God want to gather the children of Israel, the Israelites, the Jewish people, or even believers, into one geographic region in the Middle East? Okay, when God's purpose was to disperse the kingdom all over the planet, and He told the disciples, "Go, go into all the world, teach all nations." That's what the special people. That's what the chosen people, a priesthood, was chosen for, was to go, not huddle back. Okay? Why is it that most of the New Testament is written by Paul? He was to go to the world, but the disciples were huddling around Jerusalem. But eventually they took off. And the Fox's Book of Martyrs will tell you exactly where they went, all over the place, to the north, the south, the east, and the west. Diaspora is their lot in life, not to huddle in Jerusalem. Okay? Now, who does the land of Palestine, the nation of Israel, and the city of Jerusalem belong to? Then, in conclusion with all you've heard, who does that city belong to? I'll tell you who it belongs to. It belongs to Jesus. It belongs to Jesus, Yeshua, Messiah. And that city does not love him they do not love him. They are satanic and they are secular. So it belongs to Christians. It belongs to the church. And guess what? They're trying to build a temple that God will never favor. And that's why they do not deserve that land. They do not have a right to that land. They did have a right to that land back before they led a disgusting history. Their history is disgusting. Okay? So that's my message for today. I would love to know what you have to think. Give me a thumbs up and put some comments and subscribe, please. Also, send this to your networks. Get this message out, because there's hardly anybody saying what I'm saying. They're all getting it wrong. They do not define their terms. You've got to know which Israel are you talking about. Okay, so that's my message for today. Thank you for listening, and talk to you later. Bye bye.